Welcome to another edition of the CDG BizCast. I am your host, Christian Gonzalez, co-owner of Creativity Design Group, a digital marketing firm in Houston, Texas. In this episode of CDG BizCast, we are going to be doing a follow-up to episode 37, which was on nepotism and hiring. I have brought back Dana and Justin once again to discuss the frustrations of job searching as well as the pitfalls of job interviewing. And what I mean by that is sometimes we don't do very well on our job interviews because maybe we just don't handle pressure too well. When we're put on the spot, we don't conduct ourselves in the manner that we normally would. We feel that the pressure is on, that we have to answer that question perfectly or we're just not going to get the job. And that is very understandable. You might be great at what you do. You may be a pro at the job that you're applying for, but when it comes to interviewing, you just don't feel ready for the interview or you're not ready for some of the questions that they're going to ask you, and that's understandable. There are many typical job interview questions out there, such as, tell me about yourself. Do you prefer to work in groups or by yourself? Typical questions like that. Maybe they put you off and you don't know how to answer them properly, so when you attempt to wing your answer, it doesn't sound very good in the ears of your interviewer. We're going to talk about how pressure can cost you your opportunity at getting the job and why employers need to be more proactive in ensuring that they give the proper candidates a chance. They may not be handling the job interview properly, but at least understand their background and where they're coming from. So, Dana, welcome back to the show once again. Please tell me about your experiences with applying for jobs. I know that you've applied for several jobs since episode 37, and that wasn't long ago. That was just a month ago from the time of this recording. So give us an update. What's going on and what problems are you facing with your job interviews?
Thank you for having me back, Christian. I really appreciate, you bringing me on the show to talk about this. So since our last recording date for episode 37, as you mentioned, that was, I believe, May 15th. So I have applied for 7 jobs since then. 7 jobs since then. So I got rejected for 2 of those jobs that I applied to. Not to mention all the others I got rejected for. I'm still waiting to hear back from, of those 7, 5 I'm waiting to hear back from. Different locations of the same company. It doesn't matter. It's just why? Why? The 2 that I gotten rejected for since our last recording were the Target in Bridgewater, New Jersey. I was already rejected for the one in Watchung, next town over. And I can walk there. I walk a mile over there. And unfortunately, the Target in Watchung rejected me right off the bat. There are people who are working at that location who like, you should apply. I'm like, I tried. back in, where was this? Back in April. I tried. They rejected me. So I tried a different location. I actually tried 2 different locations. I tried the South Plainfield location in South Plainfield, New Jersey. And I made it to the virtual interview. Well, there's the problem right there. The virtual interview is a video recording. And they say no pressure. We understand that videoing yourself is, kind of a little daunting, but no pressure. Yeah, okay, no pressure when you only have 30 seconds to prepare for the video. How is that no pressure? That's just not fair. Not to mention that they also rejected me. So I tried the Target in Bridgewater. Well, I put in more than I could do, and I love learning new things. I will always want to learn something new. If I want to learn something new in the job force, I will tell the manager, I want to learn X, Y, and Z. So I can help out. That's how I got into the customer service side when I was working at Kohl's. I told the manager, I want to learn customer service because I see they're getting swamped. I want to help them. So I could at least be cross-trained if I was over at the registers next to customer service. Hey, they needed help. They were swamped. We were, dead at that side. I'd see if my coworkers on the registers were okay with me hopping over to customer service and helping, and I've done that numerous times. But then again, Target and Bridgewater, I put in more things that I could do. Well, reject right off the bat. Then the Best Buy in Bridgewater. Christian, I've been informing you on how that went. Well, guess what? I got the virtual interview application literally 45 seconds after I submit the application. Yes, you heard that right. 45 seconds after I submitted the application. I got the email, thank you for your application. About 40 seconds later, then 5 seconds after that, we'd like to schedule you for a virtual interview. Whatever. I was like, well then, they're desperate. Well, are they so desperate enough to reject me because of my in-person interview? I don't know. That might not be, I don't know. But yeah, 45 seconds later, and this was around midnight on May 27th. So May 28th, I ended up doing the virtual interview. If it wasn't the 20th and 29th, but that's beside the point. So I did the virtual interview like the next day or two, and this one was even more daunting than the Target one. But the Target one, you can at least try 3 times to go ahead and, with the interview, submit the final one that you feel is best. However, with Best Buy, they give you 1 minute, 60 seconds to prepare, and you only have 1 shot. That's daunting. I don't like that. I don't do well under pressure as it is, Christian, as you know. And just, I have a hard time explaining things as it is. Put me in a pressure-filled, stressful situation, like an interview. Yeah, I am set up to fail at that one because I can't explain myself the way I need to. As I said, I have a difficult time explaining things as it is. Add pressure and stress to the mix? Yeah, okay, that inability is exacerbated tenfold, if not 100-fold. And it's just sickening that people are not giving me a chance. I've told you in the previous episode I was in about this, episode 37. I am more than qualified to do the work that is required. I am more than qualified to do that work. Are they declining me and rejecting me because of the interview? I don't know. That's the problem. They don't tell you. When you get rejected, they don't tell you. They do not tell you why. I had called the Michaels in Watchung, which is the same complex as Target. I can walk there. I've done it before numerous times. And I applied to their location on May 30th. I applied to the Bridgewater location of Michaels, which is in the same complex as their Target, on May 20th. I figured give the Watchung location a call. So I called them early June. It's now June 25th, and I have yet to hear back from them. And it's just why. I gave them a much bigger availability. I talked to the store manager at that. Gave him a much bigger availability, and I told him that I could not work full time because it's true. I have burnt out from working over 40 hours a week. Not to mention being home as well and doing home stuff like, chores, cooking, cleaning, whatever. And it's just, I told him I cannot work full time. I need to be part time. I have burnt out before, but as I said, I expanded my availability. He didn't even know I had applied. Let me say that again. He did not know I even applied. So what he did, he pushed the application through to the next people, the powers that be. I still have yet to hear back from them. I put in other applications. I live near a 7-Eleven, so I can walk there. I put an application there. They didn't even know I had applied. They didn't even realize that they were hiring. That is just why. So with them, I left my name, number, and email, and sometime this week, the district leader is supposed to contact me regarding that. And it's just why? Why does somebody have to put in all these applications because they're being rejected on the interview? Stop and Shop, I talked to the manager, the hiring manager. He said, we've decided to go in a different direction. Doesn't explain why. He does not explain why, what my fault was. What was the reason for my reject? I get the emails from Target. I get the emails from Best Buy. I'm sorry, we're not what we're looking for right now. Or you don't have the qualifications that we need right now. Okay, but why was I rejected? What do I need to work on? What do I need to work on? This keeps happening. I don't know what I'm doing wrong.
Yes, that's quite unfortunate. That's extremely unfortunate that you're applying, but you're not getting anywhere. And I've been in the same boat before. I mentioned this in episode 37 as well. Long before I started CDG, I was trying to find a job in my field. At the time, I had just graduated from school, and I was ready to start working full-time. I sent out numerous applications to many positions that I looked qualified for. And there were times where I went on the interviews, and then there were times where I just never heard back. You can put so many applications out and only hear back from one, sometimes not even any of them. And that gets just as frustrating too. Now, based on my experience, what I've learned is that I could have elaborated on my answers to some of their questions better, and I could have tailored them better. For example, if they ask you, tell me 2 strengths and 2 weaknesses, originally I would give a bad answer, which would be, I would answer for my strengths that I get things done on time, and I'm hyper-focused on the task at hand. But when it came to weaknesses, I would tell them, sometimes I don't do very well when it comes to group work. So there we go. I just gave a bad answer to that question, which answers the question of, do you work better in groups or do you work better alone? And of course, that was a long time ago. As a business owner, I like working in groups all the time. In fact, I can't run this business unless I work with other people. But back then, it was a much different story. I wasn't too good at working in groups because I've had experiences where I would be the one doing all the work and the other people in the group just wouldn't participate. But that's a different story. I'm just saying, I answered those questions bad because I said that. I killed my own job interview because of the way I answered that question. How I should have answered it was, I should have said, one weakness that I used to have was the inability to work in groups. But that has changed because now I can work good in groups or alone, and I feel empowered and I enjoy the job either way. So that's how I should have answered that question. I should have mentioned the weakness and explained how I improved upon it. And when they ask you to tell them about yourself, let me give you some pro tips right here about how to answer that question. Do not start talking about what you do on your personal time, such as you like to watch this TV show, you like to go to the movies, you're interested in reading books about such and such topics, or you like to spend time with your family. Those are all great things, but they have nothing to do with the job that you're applying for. They want to know, what's your background? What skills do you have? What degree do you have? Stuff like that. They want to know, what do you have about yourself that is relevant to the job that you're applying to? What traits do you have about yourself, and how do they apply to the job that you're seeking. That's what they're looking for. They don't want to hear you talk about stuff that isn't relevant to the job. If you're doing a resume, your resume needs to reflect the requirements of the job. Let's say you're applying for a job as a data analyst. They don't want to see on your job experience that you've only worked at McDonald's and Jack in the Box and other irrelevant jobs that have nothing to do with what you're applying for. If you had jobs at those places, that's great. But it has nothing to do with the job that you're applying for now. So you'll want your resume to show your job experience. They want to see experience related to the job that you're applying for. Sometimes that's not always easy because maybe you don't have any experience. You don't have any jobs related to the one you're applying for now. Or maybe you don't have any experience related to this job because you just got out of college and you're trying to get your first job related to your college degree. And that's where things get a little unfair. But Dana, in your case, you have a lot of great experience. You've been working in retail for over a decade now. I don't see why employers should be turning you down because you obviously know the ropes, you know what you're doing, and most importantly, you're willing to learn something new. There are a lot of employers out there who don't like to train, sadly. They don't like to train. They don't like to waste the time to train because they view it as paying you extra hours just training you. They just want to have you do the job that you were hired to do and nothing else because in their eyes, they save money that way. And that's sad, but if they really want to let their own company shine, then they'll invest in employees. They will train them to do other jobs, especially if they are strongly interested in learning how to do other things. I like to learn new things. You like to learn new things. And Justin, I know that you like to learn new things as well. Companies need to stop being cheap and instead realize that by hiring wonderful, hard-working people like you, they could turn their businesses around. They could turn their locations around if they work for a chain. I mean, I don't really know what else to say about that. It's just disappointing. You deserve a job. You deserve to work. I've seen your background. I know your skill set. I know what you're seeking. It just makes me really upset that nobody's giving you a chance. When it comes to job interviewing, as much as I hate to say this, it's too bad that the pressure is just so strong.
Yes, so Christian, what you were saying with that, I actually have some points I'd like to bring up that might counter what you say. And if I'm stepping out of line, please let me know. But when I did the Best Buy interview, it was kind of like a panel of sorts. It was just me and the interviewer, and he was very, very nice. But he said, we're going to start by, I'm going to tell you about myself. You're going to tell me about yourself and things like that. So he started and he told me, he actually started the interview about himself on that. Is like, literally, I don't have a life outside work. I'm like, okay, this type of interview, got it. So it was kind of a more relaxed type of setting. But he literally started it with, I don't really have a life outside work. I'm like, thinking to myself, okay then. And so I felt like he said he was into video games and things like that. And I figured it was okay to say that as well because the interviewer said it. So if the interview says it's okay to say that because he says it, why can't the interviewee say that as well? Additionally, point I'd like to bring up with your example as the data analyst, maybe you are just out of college or something, you don't have the experience that they need. What if the previous employers that you listed, even though they're irrelevant to the work or the line of work that you were into, for this example, the data analyst, what if they call them in regards to the work ethic? Like, or you have the references from other places, they could, I know it might not be legal to mention about the work ethic when they call, but what if they put them down there to show the work ethic, how long you've been working at that place in one particular location, for how long it shows dedication. Like I know with Justin, he worked for Wendy's and it was a while he worked for them. And after he left, they had to hire 20 some odd new people. Like as you said, Justin, in the last episode, you pretty much ran that place. And it's just, is the respect to the data analyst example. What if the length of time shows dedication and work ethic? And what about, like, for example, with McDonald's, say the example for 20 years? What if the description actually shows a lot on there, a lot of responsibility on there? So that's what I'd like to bring up on that.
Yes, and I agree with you. Work ethic is very important. The only thing is that they're not going to get that just by looking at your resume that you had good work ethic. And you're right, they could call them up for a reference, but because of legal reasons, they're not going to ask them about it. They're just going to call up your previous employers to verify certain employment dates and just to simply figure out if you work there and that they're not just lying about it on their resume. But that's the problem. Work ethic is very important. If you don't have the work ethic, in my opinion, you don't deserve to have the job. I've visited several places in the past where I see nothing but lack of work ethic, and I often wonder, how did these morons get this job? They aren't taking their job seriously. They're rude. They're showing that they don't care about customer service. I see laziness all the time, and I'm thinking, how did they get hired? And if they lied in their job interview, why are they still hired after they have been demonstrating time and time again that they can't do this job and that they shouldn't even be there, that they're only there just because they want to get a paycheck and nothing more? That's what makes me feel sorry for you, Dana, because you deserve to get this job more than any of these people that I've seen actually working in these fields who just don't care. I understand that retail employees aren't getting paid enough. Maybe that's why they're unhappy, but still, that is not an excuse to drop the ball on work ethic. You were hired to do that job. You're expected to do that job. Why these people still have that job after they've been hired is beyond me, especially after they've been truly rude to people and they show that they're lazy. I go to a lot of stores, I go to a lot of restaurants. I see the same thing day in and day out. I keep thinking, why? Why are these people here? Dana, you deserve to get a job more than anybody else that I can think of right now, because nobody else takes work seriously like you do, especially in the retail field. I see too much of that going on. It's very common in retail and in the food industry. You've worked in retail, and Justin has worked in the food industry when he worked at Wendy's. Justin, I wanted to ask you, what kept you going every day? Why did you have such a great work ethic when you worked at Wendy's? And what frustrations are you facing currently right now in terms of finding a job?
I'm not really sure. I haven't been doing interviews lately because I've been doing administrative legal paperwork with some other things that are not job related at the moment, because right now my primary transportation is public transit, and that can sometimes run, depending on where you're at, 15 minutes to a half an hour late. And so sometimes that can't be the reliable form of transportation you need it to be, especially if you've got to walk 2.5 to 5 miles to the nearest bus stop from where you live. And so transportation can be an issue for some people. When I worked at Wendy's, one of the reasons that they would call me in most of the time is because, one, I'd usually accept the shift, and number two, I could get there within 15 minutes walking time on foot, and they knew that when I'd show up, I'd do the job correctly. In fact, later on, I was getting paid more in the annual bonus gift cards they used to do for another popular retailer that's since gone out of business, where what I would do is, with my gift card that they'd give me, it would be more than what they were paying them, more on that gift card than what they were giving the management who'd been there for fewer years than I had, number one, and number two, would show up less often than I did for work. And I was still making only 45 cents an hour more than what the minimum wage was at the time, the entire first 5 years I was working there.
You've always been good at showing strong dependability, and that's something that no resume or any job interview can truly demonstrate. Employers need to really see you in action to understand what you're truly worth, and that is where I feel job interviewing tends to go haywire, because it's all about just asking questions, and then if there's a lot of pressure being put on you and you're answering the questions, it doesn't show your true self. Maybe you only show that you're under this pressure when you're in the interview, but when you're actually out in the field working, you're working hard, you're showing that you're reliable, you're dependable, you're getting things done, that you're truly a key player, you're good at working in teams, and you're also good at problem solving. Maybe you can demonstrate all of these wonderful skills while you're actually performing your job, but in an interview, because it's such a different setting and you just feel pressured, or you don't really know the answer to the question, that is why you're not getting hired, because the interviewer is relying too much on what they see just based on that interview instead of giving you a chance and letting you see what you're truly worth. In a way, it's like back in high school when we had the SATs. I've always felt the SATs were not a great way to measure how much a student was truly worth in terms of their knowledge because they put a lot of trick questions on the SAT.
Oh, I hated the SATs. I hated them so much.
So did I. And here's the thing about what I'm trying to say. The SAT is just like a job interview because they ask trick questions. And if you notice on the SAT, each question will be worded a certain way where you have to read it very carefully. And then when you look at the answers, all 4 or 5 answers appear to be correct. They just want you to pick the most correct answer because they're all correct answers, but only one is the most correct. It's basically a test on perfection. The reason why I'm saying that is because a job interview is the same way. A job interview has questions where many of them are trick questions, and they want to see if you're going to answer it properly or are you going to answer it incorrectly, right?
Targets like that.
Yeah, they ask trick questions, right? Could you share an example of what they asked you that appeared to be a trick question?
Sure. So, oh my gosh. And this wasn't even in the interview. This was in the application stage. They have these questions that it's almost like a psychological exam. You either pass or fail. And it's just so friggin' stupid. And hear me out on this. It's just it's a psychological evaluation of sorts. So they have these there's 40 questions that some of them are actually repetitive. And it's either always, sometimes on either one. And one of the questions I remember is either because it's either this or that. And one of them was like, I tend to get upset at people or frustrated at people or mad at people or whatever. And I never get mad at people. How are you supposed to answer that? It's either it's always like me, all the time, sometimes you tend to get angry at people, or that you're never angry at people. You never get angry at people. Sometimes, always. How are you supposed to answer that? That's just why? And on top of that, Christian, how is that relevant to the topic? How is that relevant to the job? It's just so stupid. So stupid.
It's relevant because they want to make sure that you can handle yourself with the public easily. They don't want to hire somebody who's going to blow up at a customer when they get frustrated. And honestly, for myself, if I answered on that question that I never get angry at people, I'll be flat out lying. I get angry all the time. People frustrate me. And, I'm just being open about that. But the reason why they ask those questions is because they want to make sure that they're not hiring a hothead who's going to fly off the handle when they're handling a customer. They don't want to hire people who could possibly be rude who are bringing money to the company every day.
You can't lie about that, though. They want you to be honest about it. They even say, tell us the truth.
They are trying to trick you. They're trying to trap you into either lying or answering honestly. Because either way, whether you lie or you answer honestly, you're not going to get the job.
Catch-22.
And psychological profiling, unless you're a psychiatrist or psychologist, police officer, or judge, is illegal last time I checked. Employers are not usually supposed to be allowed to do that, or not unless there's stuff in the laws that I haven't become aware of within the last 20 years.
Justin, you saw that what I was talking about with the target application. I showed you that. Would you agree that that's almost like psychological profiling?
Yes, it is.
You've seen the questions on there. I've told you the questions on there.
Yeah, and I've actually applied for Target myself. And usually when I get to the in-store application stage, they tell me that they've hired somebody else for the position, even though I would be able to do the work of a 2 or 3 man crew in some cases, depending
Same here. It's not fair.
It's disgusting in my opinion. I do agree with Justin as well. This is psychological profiling. I want to know when I hire people, can you do the job? What's your skill set and how reliable are you?
From experience, the Walmart, Target, and Best Buy profiles are very similar on how their questions are worded. And some of those questions that are repeats, I don't know if you noticed this, Dana, but on a lot of those applications for those big companies especially, will be the same question worded a slightly different way, trying to trick you into saying something that will give them an excuse not to hire you.
On top of that, Justin, I don't know if you've realized about those repeat questions, but they'll switch sides. They'll switch the sides of them. So like one time the question will be on the right-hand side, the other, then when it comes again, it's on the left-hand side.
I noticed that, and I think one of the reasons that employers do that is to try to figure out if you're actually paying attention to what's being said and the position of the answer that they would be looking for to even get to the in-store interview stage.
Yeah, see, I didn't even get to that point with Target. I got to the virtual interview. You remember how scared I was and how pressured I was when I did that and the Best Buy one.
Yeah, it took you almost half an hour, 45 minutes to decompress.
Don't even get me started on the in-person interview with Best Buy. Yeah, the guy was great, but he was, yeah, okay, he was 21 years old. Okay, big whoop. Okay, he led it with, I really don't have a life outside work. I think I told you that. But it's just, what am I doing wrong? Justin, Christian, what am I doing wrong? What am I doing wrong in terms of applying? Why do I keep getting rejected? What is the reason for that?
Well, it's hard to tell because I have not interviewed myself personally, so it's hard for me to know the answer to that, but I do want to give you this tip as well. I understand that job interviews put a lot of pressure on you, but here's what you need to remember when you go into an interview. You're going into a job interview, not an interrogation, so
I've seen interrogations and I've been in job interviews, and I'll be honest with you, Christian, with all due respect, that's not the case. It's the questions that throw me off. I don't know how to respond. I'm not prepared. Something I actually like to do, and I've, told a lot of people this, and I'm telling you as well, Christian, is I like to do mock interviews with my family and or friends. So this way, any questions that they ask me in the mock interview, maybe it's what they ask for in the real interview. So this way I'll have that preparedness. But I've been doing that. It's like, what am I doing wrong? Why?
in order to find out what you're doing wrong, you would need to interview somebody who is an expert in job interviewing. Maybe they've worked in the field before. Maybe they have worked in HR before. What you need to do to figure out where you're going wrong is you need to speak to someone who has done job interviews before, preferably somebody who has worked in HR. They will be able to point you in the right direction. They'll be able to coach you on your job answers and tell you how you did. Because when I was in college, when I took my career development class, we actually had to go on a mock job interview with one of the career counselors who worked at our school. We would schedule the interview, we would come dressed, we would have our resume. It would go as if we were doing a real interview. Then when the interview was over, they gave us feedback on how we did. As soon as the interview was over, we were able to get back into our normal selves, and then they would tell us where we could have improved upon, how we could have answered the questions better, and that's what I think you need, Dana. You need to talk to somebody who can coach you, somebody who has actually worked in HR or was involved in hiring at a company, whether it be a small company or a large company, it doesn't matter. If they know what to look for when they're choosing candidates, they'll be able to point you in the right direction. They'll give you a mock interview, and then you can answer the questions and find out what's going on. When you go to a job interview, it's important to stay relaxed. Even though you feel the pressure is on, even though you feel that you're probably being put on the spot and it causes you to maybe forget what you're about to say. Maybe you've prepared yourself well, but then when you're put on the spot in the real world, it just causes your mind to just go blank. That's understandable because I've been down that road myself too. My pitfalls with job interviewing were that I didn't answer the questions really good at the time. And we're talking about nearly 10 years ago. At the time, I didn't know I was going to be a business owner, and I didn't really have a clear path over what I was going to do once I graduate, a clear career path post-graduation. But I did learn from my mistakes. I learned that whenever I get asked a question, for example, tell me about yourself, to make sure that I talk about my background in terms of schooling, what degrees I hold, and what my skill set is, as well as if I had any previous job experience before that, where I worked and what I did, and nothing more than that. They don't want to know where you went on vacation or what you saw on TV last night or what you did over the weekend. They want to know specifics about who you are and why your background is relevant to the position you're applying for. And secondly, you might get asked the question, tell me about a book you've read recently. What was it called and what was it about? Why did you read it? Sometimes I'll ask you that question, and I'm not asking you to answer that question, but that's a good question to put people on the spot. Because a lot of people don't read. So it's understandable that you might get asked a question that throws you off. That's why it's important to practice like you've been doing, Dana. Go on Google and do a search for the most commonly asked job questions, and you'll get a list of questions that you could prepare yourself with if you're practicing with a family member. And being that your dad owns a dental practice, I think he would be a great person for you to practice with. You could have him ask you the questions, and then you answer them, and then when the interview is over, he can give you some feedback on how you did, because he's a professional. He owns a business, and he's hired a lot of people. I think that's a great strategy. By doing that the way you've explained it to me earlier, it's a great way to practice.
I do know that there are some people who are in my age range that are currently employed, and I could probably try to reach out to them as well. See what they were, kind of questions they were asked while applying and while on the interview stage. So maybe, and it doesn't matter, again, as you said, what field, because yes, my dad's a dentist. Yes, I'm going into the retail field. However, the questions sometimes don't change. So yeah, I could ask some people in my age range as well, possibly, to see what they think. That'd be an idea.
That sounds like a great idea. And I may reach out to some of those that are closer to my age that have been recently hired for some advice on that, and maybe contact my local Department of Employment and Workforce to see if they want to have some advice for me. Definitely a good idea. You might want to talk to your local Department of Employment and Workforce to see if
Yeah,
they might
I've
have
been
some.
through my Division of Vocational Rehabilitations already in Somerset County, and they're not going to help me anymore because they helped me with my massage therapy license, and they actually flat out said, we will not help you again.
Oh, geez.
Yeah. And I'm not even Union County anymore. And I'm technically, my post office is Plainfield, which is Union County, but I'm North Plainfield, which is Somerset County. So yeah, Somerset County DVR is who I'd have to go to, and they already said, we're not going to help you again. They flat out told me that to my face. We will not help you again.
How friendly and kind of them.
Oh, you ain't kidding. And that's a government agency, DVR, Division of Vocational Rehabilitation, for you. Not to mention, they shuffled me over to the Flemington, Hunterdon County location for training that I didn't even realize that was going on.
Wow, the way you said it just outright disgusted me if they treated you like that.
Do you know that employers are desperate for new hires in most cases, and you can only hire out of those who apply. But please, if you've got an online application process, at least tell the local store that the person has applied.
I agree.
Because the store cannot hire you if they don't know your application was shuffled to the central location for processing.
That happened with Michaels. He didn't even realize I had applied, and he had to push it through because nobody told him. Nobody informed him for about a week and change afterwards until I called, and I said I want to check on the status of my application. Well, guess what? He didn't even know I applied.
You know, I've always felt that even though we are in the year 2023 and technology powers nearly everything now, I've always felt that old-fashioned paper job applications kept job applications personal versus now, ever since everything went online nearly 2 decades ago, it takes the personalization right out of it. You just become a piece of paper, a number, and you get overlooked real easily. It's no longer personal where you talk to somebody, you call them, you fill out a paper application, and the manager knows exactly who has applied. Because it's all digital, your resume, your application gets lost in a black hole somewhere, never to be seen again. And online job applications just suck the personalization right out of it. And that's my final remark on that.
When I worked at Kohl's, when I had applied to them, it was about January, maybe February of 2011. So they actually had paper applications. I got hired with them in March that year, 2011. They had paper applications. I remember sitting down in the back where the benches were next to where customer service was, over by the restrooms, and sitting down next to my dad, filling out that application with a pen in my hand in the paper in front of me. Now, when I had been working there and I was working customer service and people, young people, because they even hired 17-year-olds. And, they have some 17, 18, 19-year-olds coming over to customer service asking about a job application if we're hiring. I had to tell them, unfortunately, everything's gone digital. So check colescareers.com, which was the website I was supposed to tell them, and see, because unfortunately, I don't have the answer to that. And one of them was young. They were probably somewhere in that age range, 17, 18, 19 years old. And they told me, that sucks that everything's digital now. Why can't there be paper applications again? I said, you're telling me when I had applied X number of years back, it was paper. So you're telling me this was I believe either a millennial or a Gen Z saying this.
When you have millennials and Gen Zs also saying we should have paper applications, that's where you know there's something wrong with online job applications.
All right. I, as one of the older millennials within the millennial age range, I think that paper applications make it much more personal, because if you have the paper application at the physical location for the job, it can be reviewed by the on-site HR department for appropriate handling. And I think that that makes it a lot easier to hunt down the applicant, because more than likely they live in the area. They probably wouldn't have to commute more than a half an hour to the job, maybe. And it also localizes it, because that way you know you're hiring local talent.
Exactly. When I lived at the time with my parents, I lived less than 50, between 10 and 15 minutes, depending on which way you'd go, no more than 15 minutes away from that Kohl's. And when it comes to Target and Michael's in Watchung, I live 1 mile walking distance from there. I can go the back ways. I don't even have to touch the main road, Route 22. And I can literally go the back way. I can walk 18 minutes is my mile average. 18 minutes in a mile for me at my pace. So if I can walk from my apartment front door over to Target front door, the way I walk up the hills and everything in 18 minutes, I don't understand why I'd be rejected automatically without even an interview, without even anything. They just automatically rejected me. So, yeah, and it's just frustrating. I've walked to the Staples. I still have Staples on hold because they weren't hiring yet. They said that they would put that on hold for a bit. I think I mentioned that in episode 37 as well, Christian. That Staples was going to put things on pause. I would not need to re-interview. I would not need to reapply. They're just putting it on pause. And you know what? It's about this time frame that they'd be rehiring again, supposedly. And it's just, I've actually walked, I calculated approximately 25 minutes to get from my front door over to Staples. It took me 23 minutes to get there. And actually a little less because I did pause a little bit. I stopped a little bit between that. So approximately 20 to 23 minutes. And I walked alongside Route 22 in the rain to look for job hunting. I walked in the rain, the downpour that day when I was walking around. And Justin, you remember, you were on video with me at that time. It was pouring.
Oh yeah, it was really coming down. That's weather that was serious enough that even I wouldn't go driving in weather that bad.
But for me, I wanted to find a job and I showed dedication. I walked into that service department at that North Plainfield Nissan dealership that I'm right above the hill on. You know what I mean? And I walked in there soaking wet from the rain. And I asked if they were hiring cashiers. Because guess what? Sometimes dealerships do hire part-time cashiers. That guy was so impressed that I walked in the pouring rain, soaking wet, And I told him, I don't drive. I live right up the hill and I would walk here. And he was impressed. They all were impressed when I walked in, soaking wet, asking for a job. I told them, I don't care what the weather is. I will walk it. I have 2 legs at work, and I understand some people, unfortunately don't have that capability of walking everywhere. They need to rely on transportation. I feel for them. I really do. But I am 32 years old, and I do not have a driver's license. I never went for my driver's license exams. So I walk everywhere if I'm able to. And if I walk down the hill, down to 22, over to the dealership, if that's where I'm working, you better believe I will show up, rain or shine. I applied to 7-Eleven. They didn't even know I had applied until I walked in a week later. But I told them as well, doesn't matter the weather, I will be here. And I said to them this, and then not necessarily here as in this particular building and company location, but anywhere I applied to. Anywhere I applied to. Doesn't matter the weather. If I can walk it, I will be at work on time, if not early.
Exactly. I remember when I was working for Wendy's, there'd be days where it would be visibility 10 feet and I had to cross an overpass to get to work. It'd be blizzard conditions, 10-foot visibility. Yeah, 18-wheeler mirrors coming within inches of my head on my way to work.
I do the same thing. I would do the exact same thing if given the opportunity to work somewhere. But everybody's hiring, but nobody's biting. And that's unacceptable.
It's beyond unacceptable that they are doing this. Why are they dangling the carrot in front of everyone's faces if they're not really going to reward, right? That now hiring sign, when they announce they're hiring, they are dangling a carrot in front of several applicants' faces, and then they just let them all down. They could only be doing it just to show that they are in compliance with the law, to show that they're hiring based on whatever your state's employment laws are, but regardless, it's wrong. They do it with online job applications. They do it when they put signs up in the windows or facing the road saying that they're looking for help, only to find out that they're not hiring, and it's just disgusting. It's terrible.
That was the case with 7-Eleven. They said, we're not hiring this at this location. Are you sure you got the right location? I said, yep, I did, and I showed them the listing on Indeed, and I showed them how long ago it was posted. They didn't even realize that it was listed. I had verified the address with them. Yep, that's us. Oh, I didn't know that. Okay. And yeah, I didn't talk to the head manager, but I talked to the manager on duty. He didn't even know they were hiring.
Just sad, just plain unprofessional if you ask me. You would think that they would be keeping tabs on these things, especially if corporate is advertising these jobs for their location. That alone shows that there is a huge disconnect between the local branch and the corporate office.
Well, they're a franchisee location. They said on the website that the independent stores are franchised, but the ones at the gas station are corporate owned. And when I went down there to ask about it the other day, I was actually told that the district leader would be coming in sometime next week, meaning this week, so sometime this week. And with that, I left my name, my number, and my email. Hopefully.
It still shouldn't make a difference whether or not it's a franchise or a corporate-owned location, because even franchise locations have to work through corporate to get certain things done, because their main corporate website will be posting the jobs for their franchise locations as well. Franchise businesses should always be connected with what's going on from their corporate offices. Otherwise, they're not going to be in the loop over really anything. How are they supposed to know, for example? It goes beyond just job searching. What if corporate is pushing some sort of promotion or special that they expect their franchisees to participate in, but they're not even telling them about it? There needs to be a very strong relationship and connection between the franchisee and the corporate office. In my eyes, I just saw no professionalism there. I saw no professionalism in how Target handled you, or how Staples handled you, or how Michaels handled you, or any of these other companies that you mentioned. They did not handle you professionally. And what's sad is that the number of people searching for jobs is about to increase. And I don't know if you know this, but it was just announced that just last month, Bed Bath & Beyond and Tuesday Morning are going to be going out of business coincidentally on June the 30th. They're not related in any way, but they're both going to be going out of business completely forever on the 30th, which is not long from now at the time of us taping. We're going to have more people who are being let go from both of these two well-known retail stores looking for a job, and guess what? They're all going to be in the exact same position that you're in, and it's really sad.
But are they going to be in the exact same position, though? Or are they going to be automatically accepted because of the fact that Tuesday Morning and Bed Bath & Beyond were both filed for bankruptcy, and so they had no choice? So are they going to be automatically accepted, or are they going to be in the same predicament as me?
It's hard to say. It depends on how the hiring managers see it. Some of them might feel sympathetic that these people are about to be shown the door, and others are just not going to care. They're going to have them go through the exact same circus that you had to go through in order to find a job. They don't care if they were let go because their previous employer went out of business. They're just going to let them jump through all these hoops and see if they're really worth their time or not. And that's what's sad. These are people who have already shown to their previous employer that they know the ropes and are ready to work, but how they decide to hire them will be up to them.
And that's deplorable, in my opinion. If you look at my resume, you can see that I have no job history notated since November 22nd, 2022. It is June 25th, 2023. I am still job hunting. As I said in the last one, I am only making $976 a month from disability, and I am more than happy to get back into the workforce should somebody hire me. Now, that's a problem because I have all these bills I need to pay. I have a loan I need to pay down. I have this, I got that I need to. I got groceries, for crying out loud, that I need to get. I just had my wisdom teeth removed. I'm on a limited diet right now, but you know what? Big whoop. But that aside, I am cleared to work. As long as I don't take the one medication that they prescribe, because that's heavy duty stuff. But that aside, I'm cleared to work. I can work. No big deal. It's just, why, people? Why? Why? Business owners, why? Why do you overlook these perfectly qualified candidates? Why do you only go based on the first impressions of people? Let me tell you guys something in the business world here. When I first met Justin, I thought he was a jerk. Come to find out, I gave him the benefit of the doubt. I got to know him a little better. He was under an immense amount of stress and didn't know how to handle it very well. Some people don't handle it very well. And that aside, but at the same time, completely relevant. Do not take what you see at the interview at face value. Maybe some of us get pressured and we get flustered. I've said it before, I'll say it again. You hire me, I'll make your company succeed. I will make it so successful, it's not even funny. Why are you not giving me the benefit of the doubt? Because I have all this employment information. I have all this history here. All my references. I have a previous manager, plus one of my former supervisors on there. And they both know my work ethic. That particular manager I've mentioned before on the previous episode. For privacy and protection, I will not say where and who he is. But he told me, and I quote, "If I was able to hire you back, I would go against corporate's wishes. You put in an application, I would go against corporate." It proves my work ethic, and why isn't anybody hiring me? You know what I'm saying?
One problem with hiring managers is that a lot of them are perfectionists, and that's the problem. That's what I take from my experience. I got tired of working for other people because I got sick of perfectionist bosses. Now, that's another topic for another day, but when it comes to hiring process, but there's narcissism involved just as well as nepotism. They do go by the first impression, sadly. They don't really understand what you're truly worth because they are so picky in the hiring process. And I feel, Dana, that you are a victim of their narcissism. They're not giving you a chance because they don't really want to see what you're truly worth. They're just basing it off of probably general little things. We're all human. We all make mistakes. If you get thrown off by an interview question, guess what? That's part of life. I'm not perfect. If I get thrown off that question, question, I may slip up answering it. You know why? Because I'm a human being. I'm not perfect. Of course I'm not going to answer it 100% correct because we make mistakes as humans. You can't be perfect the way your bosses train you to believe, because they may be perfectionists who believe that you have to be better than God at what you do, but that's because they have an unrealistic way of thinking. And I think you understand that.
One of my managers at one of my former jobs actually told me that I needed to slow down when I was working because at that time I was about 20 weeks pregnant or 21 weeks pregnant. And I have a tendency of walking very, very quickly. If he expected perfection from me, why would he tell me to slow down when I was pregnant while walking around the store? Not to mention that he confided in me something very, very personal, something I will not repeat, but something very personal that happened to him and his family, because of which managers only require perfection, then he's a rare exception, in my opinion.
He is actually, because not many bosses are understanding like he was. Many of them are huge perfectionists. They don't care if you're pregnant and you have family issues going on. They don't care what's going on in your personal life or anything like that. They just want you to get the job done. I hate to say that, but based on past experiences that I've had myself, it's very true. Some bosses are huge micromanagers. This is going to be a topic for another episode altogether, but I'm just saying, your boss that you had at the time was a rare gem. Most bosses do not have a heart. They do not have a heart. They don't care. You thankfully had one who did care and understood that what you were going through, understood that you were a human being and not one of their corporate slaves.
Robot or something.
Exactly.
Small business owners, large corporate store owners, I don't care who you are, you're all getting this question. Why do you only take what you see at the interviews and not give people the benefit of the doubt? Maybe there's a reason that we flunked the interview, but we have all the work experience we do. My question for all you business owners, small, large, corporate, doesn't matter, all of you. If you own a business or you run a store, your manager, doesn't matter. Why are you only taking what you see at face value at the interviews? Why are you not giving people the benefit of the doubt? We are human beings. We make mistakes. We have our flaws. My question, why are you not giving people the benefit of the doubt? Do you want your company to fail because you're not hiring the people who are indeed more than qualified for the job? Or you want your company to fail because you're taking a very hardworking individual, such as myself, but not just myself. You're taking what you see at the interview at face value and assuming that that's what we are like in the workforce. Do you want your company to fail with that? Because that's something you guys need to think about.
I agree. There's too many great candidates out there that you could possibly be hiring right now that could speed up your operations better than a well-oiled machine, but you're not giving them a chance because something in your interviewing process is throwing you off. Understand that we are human beings. We make mistakes, and just because the interview doesn't go well doesn't mean that the candidate you're interviewing at the moment won't do a stellar job, especially if the proof is in the pudding. When you look at their resumes, when you contact their previous employers for possible references, you never know. Even though you're only allowed to ask certain things, your previous employers would use as a reference may actually go ahead and say something extremely positive about that person that you're hiring. Think about that.
Not to mention that a lot of the applications I put in don't even ask for references.
Give all your candidates a chance. They're applying for that job for a reason. They have the experience. They know what they're doing. This is for everybody out there who is listening, who is in charge of hiring. Make sure you truly know who you're hiring before you write them off. Don't let one little slip up in the interview question mess you up. And that's my final word on the subject.
Please give applicants the benefit of the doubt. We are human beings. We make mistakes. We screw up sometimes. It's normal. We're human. Please give us the benefit of the doubt. As Christian said, the proof is in the pudding, on the resume. There are people who desperately need jobs and they want to work and they put in all these applications only to find rejection. You're not what we need. You don't have the qualifications we need. Well, why don't you tell us why we're rejected? So we can, at some point build on those flaws, build on those weaknesses, so we can correct our mistakes, so we can do better in the interview if that's what you're going on. Why don't you tell us what we do wrong? I'm sick and tired of the rejections from companies I apply to, and I'm sure other people are as well, without being told why.
Those of us who are trying to work for your company, if you don't tell us what it was during the interview or on the resume you didn't like, we will not be able to take corrective action.
Justin, you had, what was it, 296 rejects?
Yep.
Did any of them
296?
ever tell you why?
No.
That's,
And that's frustrating.
yeah, that's horrible. Give us the benefit of the doubt. And if you're going to reject us, tell us why. Don't just send a pre-written robotic, will not respond to any replies, automated message out. We took the time to apply for your company. We took the time, if we made it that far, to interview with one of your employees. Please give us some common courtesy here. Please take the time to explain why. It's not the end of the world. And in fact, it's the end of the world to us who don't get the explanations why. It may not seem like the end of the world to you business owners, but to us who are trying to find a job only to be met with rejection and not told why, it's the end of the world to us. Please put yourself in our shoes. Put yourself in mine and Justin's, for example, and Christian's as well when he was trying to find jobs right out of college. Please, I may not have a college education, but that should not matter. That should not matter. Please, put yourself in my shoes. Put yourself in Justin's shoes. 296 with no explanation why. See how it is if you were to get so many rejections and no explanation why. Please, 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 business owners, please. Try to see things from more perspectives.
Exactly. And I want to end by saying this. Step into their shoes and understand. You hiring managers, you business owners, y'all don't understand because y'all have been in a high-paying position for a long time and don't know what it's like to be jobless with a need to support a family, a need to pay bills. That's why you don't understand. Have a heart and open up your hiring process and make it easier on the candidates who truly want to put their heart and soul into working for your company. Don't just keep writing them off over every little thing that you think is wrong. I could go on and on about this, but just remember that hiring the right employees will make or break your company. Justin, Dana, thank you once again for joining me on the show today. This was a powerful episode. Y'all both conveyed some great feelings, the emotion. I really hope that the heartstrings of the business owners and the hiring managers out there were pulled by this and their move to make some serious changes in their hiring process.
I hope so, Christian, because being without a job, any sort of income aside from my disability income, which really is not a lot at all, is, and this has been since November, as I said, this is frustrating. And I know I'm not the only one out there who's in this predicament, but through your channel, through your podcast, your BizCast, Christian, I'm able to speak for those who cannot speak or are too afraid to speak up about it or don't know who to turn to. So on behalf of all of the people that do not have a job, that cannot get a job, that keep getting rejected, I hear you. I hear you. And believe me, I will tell like it is on this because I feel you. I hear you.
Telling it like it is what we're all about here at BizCast. I tell everything like it is, you tell everything like it is, and Justin always tells everything like it is, and we're trying to give all those who are struggling a voice. But yes, thank you for joining me on the show once again.
But employers, you definitely need to pay attention because you never know who you might be turning down.
Exactly, Justin. So yes, thank you guys once again, and I hope y'all have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, Christian. very, very appreciative of you letting me vent on this topic. It's, as I said, it's a topic that's near and dear to me. So I really appreciate the chance to speak on, as I said, behalf of everybody who's in this predicament or has been in this predicament, just can't speak up about it. I appreciate the opportunity to be the voice and be on your channel once again explaining things like this.
Yes, it was my pleasure to have you on the show to open up and express yourself about how you feel. I really hope that the business owners of the world will be moved by your powerful words.